Hello everyone, this is Blademaster, and welcome to my presentation for this year's Fire Emblem E3. My project for this year is a Game Boy Advance remake of Fire Emblem Thracia 776, also known as FE5. The tentative title for this project is FE5AD. I chose AD as the moniker, I believe the term would be, because of just because of like how with regular time, you have AD, BC, and in this context, I guess you could say it's a bit silly to use AD, but I'm using AD to signify an honor and memory of, Quan and Sigurd for their sacrifices they made in making sure that Leaf's adventure could get here. Right now, this is the tentative title screen. I will probably remove the Japanese text and center the push start as I work more on the project. But for right now, let's get started and talk a bit about this project and presentation. So right now I have not implemented any map sequences or pre-chapter cutscenes. I plan to, in the future, do something to address them. I'm not sure if I'm going to implement the world map like Thracia 776 had, because in part I find world map hacking a bit cumbersome, but if I want to be as faithful to the original as possible, I'll probably ultimately do something similar, but we'll see. Another problem I have with world map sequences is it's a bit too much talking, and with how GBA hacking is now, and if you've played Sun God's Wrath, then I like to show a lot more when I get the chance. But for right now, one of the things I'm going to talk about at the beginning of the project and some of the features I implemented, you can see that the title screen, the chapter screen shows a bit similar to how it is in Thracia 776. I'm hoping to change the outline of this diagram so that it looks a bit more like the chapter intro screens that you would see in the original game. Now, when it comes to the mugs for this project, a lot of them are either publicly available for free use among fans or ones that I made myself. I am hoping to ultimately improve upon some of the mugs, as the project goes on. But for those of you who've played Fire Emblem 5 before, you should be familiar with the mugs or characters here. You have Raedric and Weissman. In regards to the translation for this project, given some of the issues with the Project Exile and Littlemaster translation, whether that be for DMCA reasons or for just the general nature of the translation, I chose to make this translation follow Fire Lizard's translation from Seren's Forest, along with a combination of my own. I do have someone who's fluent in Japanese assisting me. As far as my Japanese skills go, I've just been kind of like studying it here and there over the years. I would not say that I'm fluent. I've never taken any, N1 or N5, I think is the lowest one, if I remember right, test. Or maybe I think I have that backwards, but that's besides the point. This is just a translation that uses the official Nintendo translations, which is why it's the Fianna Free Blades as you'd see in Heroes through Evel's profile, along with, like I said, Fire Lizards and my own. So don't expect anything like too crazy. I'm gonna try and keep the translation more or less as towards the more literal side, trying not to take too many liberties. In terms of the design philosophy that I'm trying to attempt when making this hack, I'm trying to keep it in a remake more in the vein of like the DS games as opposed to something like Echoes, because that's kind of, I'm someone who's not really like very favorable towards like OCs and like rewriting stories, so I kind of wanted to keep it more towards like the core stuff of what works. At the same time, if you do decide to play this project, don't take this project to be a replacement for the original. While I will try and implement a lot of features that were in it, there are some features that were in it and new additions that are in this project that will make the two be different enough. And honestly, like, you can play Thracia on the Super Nintendo like just fine. Like it's a perfectly viable game. I don't care if you've by chance seen like any of the recent Let's Plays that I've started doing for Fire Emblem One. I don't hold the same opinion of like Thracia and like any of the SNES games where like the menus are so cumbersome. Like Thracia is just perfectly fine. Like if you want to play that one, I highly recommend you do. It's a great game. If you don't want to play that one because of some of the features and stuff in it that you find to be kind of annoying, maybe you'll like this one a bit more. I will say a lot of those features are still in, and as we get through the story, we'll talk a bit more about what's going on. Okay, so far the intro is a bit of the same. The enemy's just loading out of nowhere, something that I'd like to refine in the future. So now we have the free blade showing up in typical event fashion from the original Chapter 1. Here we have our cast of characters. So, I think when it comes to the mug quality, a lot of them, are pretty consistent, and some are a bit better than others. Melia is a fantastic spriter and made quite a few of the mugs that are in the project so far. The Leaf one is one that I, spliced together based on publicly available assets of both Melia's and others. This Leaf in particular, I believe I made using Melia's Alan. I'm never gonna remember the new name, but I think it's Skahat, and Ira's son, and then some Batima the Bat's Marth, and then Elliewood is also what I used to make the Leaf, but the fin was just something that Melia made. Same with Evel, and then I believe it's Ate made the if I'm pronouncing that right, made the Ocean, while Sterling Glover made like a lot of the other mugs that are used in this project. So here's one of the new things about this hack. I plan to add either 7 or 8 new characters, and by new characters I don't mean like OCs. I mean like if you see Genes here, then you probably have a good idea of who the other 7 or 8 characters might be. But even though I say 7 or 8, what that would ultimately mean is that there are only like 6 extra characters. So Vanilla Thracia has 50 total playable characters you can get in a single playthrough. This hack would feature 56. And I'm just gonna say right now, like, between whether or not who you decide to the plan is that whoever you have Leaf support more, Nana or Jean, you'll end up getting either Diarmid or Tristan, who's Jean's brother and Diarmid's substitute. Yeah, so that's like kind of an example of like one of the situations. The other situation is like one I haven't decided upon yet, but maybe I'll get into that a bit later. For right now, I'm kind of just freewheeling this, and we've been seeing a lot of dialogue, so let's get started. You get some little hints on like capture and stuff. Okay. So one of the things in terms of the gameplay mechanics that changed a bit is, we'll start with Leaf. So Leaf starts out as an Outlander, and the reason I did this and why I used this custom mug is because Leaf's normal outfit in Thracia is like really regal and like fancy, and he's supposed to kind of be in hiding, so I kind of tried to go with something more on the down low. In fact, he uses a Marth battle. No, he uses Elliewood. He used to use a Marth battle sprite, but he uses Elliewood, and he's trying to look a bit more like Marth, like how Marth does in FE1, because in that game, Marth is supposed to be kind of in hiding. He's not supposed to be that fancy. So when Leaf promotes into a prince, that's when, if you're familiar with Fire Emblem animations, that's when he'd start using that really fancy leaf animation that I believe Obsidian Daddy made. And, I'll change the mug to be, the one that Melia made, so that, you see Leaf in his more fancy outfit. But for right now, he starts out as this Outlander class. In this hack, sorry about that. I'm trying to remember my controls. You press select button and you could see the stat growths. If you've played Sun God's Wrath, I already implemented con and movement growths, so those are still back. As far as stats and stat capping go, Thracia caps everything at 20. In this hack, we're going to go with more natural stat caps that you're more familiar with in some of the later FE games. So for right now, Leaf stats are a bit similar to what they are in vanilla Thracia, but as it goes on, maybe we'll tweak that a bit to, for balance purposes. Leaf has his vanilla equipment. One of the things, another thing I implemented that, obviously from Thracia is fatigue, which right now is 0, but at the end of the day, Leaf doesn't get fatigue. There's PCC, which is also known as a follow-up critical modifier, I think, or pursuit critical coefficient. For those who've never played Thracia and are unfamiliar with the mechanic, when you do a double attack and you commit to the double attack, your critical rate gets multiplied by this. So Leaf's critical is 31 right now because of his supports, and we'll get into that for a second. But if Leaf was trying to critical on a second attack while he had with 2 PCC, his critical rate would become 62 instead of 31. So it's just simple multiplication. And then movement stars are implemented. So movement stars are that whatever the number of the movement star you have times 5, at the end of the turn you have that % chance to get your another action. So then when it comes to supports in this hack, I'll probably modify them, and nerf them as things go on, but it's gonna work like in Thracia, where the vanilla Thracia, where you just start with certain stats, support stats, and then as you go through the game, there will be base conversations where you can raise them, and that was implemented for a certain reason that I'll get into for a bit. So when it comes to skills in this hack, skills in this hack are combat arts. They aren't % based. They work like how they do in Three Houses and Echoes. You use more durability to, activate the skill, and you can always activate it on player phase. And, some people might see that and go, oh, the light brand normally only get 1, it has 60 uses. Now if you try and use Adept with it, 1 round of combat means you'll lose, go down to 54, 57, right away. So there will be, in some cases, extra, weapons that you're able to get and things like that. So don't stress over that too much. But of course, this is a game with capture, and we'll get into capture a bit more later. So starting off, you have Leaf, next you have Avel. So in the original Thracia, as you know, with Avel, one of the things that's notable about her is that she joins you with capped skill and speed. So to make up for that, with how the new mechanics are, that transferred her over to her, and so that she can keep her stats for given what happens to her during the story. Another thing you'll see is leadership stars are in this hack. Okay, that I need to change the text, but the leadership is going to work the same way as it does in vanilla Thracia. It's supposed to be +3 hit, +3 avoid for each leadership star. Right now, I think the avoid mechanic and the hit mechanic is going to be more based off the DS games. It definitely doesn't look like she has GBA avoid. I don't remember the formulas off the top of my head. My apologies. But Avel starts with her same old equipment. So one of the changes I think to Avel that I made this time around is that her and Leaf support each other, just like Leaf will also support Finn and Jean to start, which is why I said, I'll probably lower the bonuses as things go on, because right now 30 hit, avoid, crit, and dodge is insane, even with the changed up mechanics. So next we have Finn. So Finn is a mounted unit. Mounted units, like I said, we'll talk about this more when it comes to capturing. So when it comes to his miracle skill, the miracle skill is the Sun God's Wrath version instead of the regular GBA version. I mean, not the regular, like the SNES version, where you'll just like survive a hit. So something to note about Finn is that Finn only uses lances, and he has lances like as his only equipment. And the reason for that is because when he dismounts, and this is gonna fall for everyone, he just becomes, you know, an unmounted lance knight. So he's just, you know, able to only use lances, unlike before where if he dismounted he would always wield swords. That's why he's an axe reaver. As you can see, there are also going to be new weapons compared to the original Thracia, as Finn has his axe reaver. Next after Finn we have Halvin. So Halvin and Ocean normally are both mercenaries, but I decided to mix it up a bit, you know, because I can. And it's kind of similar to how like Ogma and Navarre both became like mercenary and Myrmidon respectively. Or yeah, I probably got that mixed up, but you know. So Halvin has Vantage, and Ocean has Wrath. Just like in Vanilla Thracia, you can't combine. I made it so that you can't combine Vantage and Wrath, and of course, Ocean will always activate, you know, a critical on his first attack. I gave them a support too. Their support is a bit different. It boosts attack and defense instead. So that's how their support will work. Now, when it comes to the Brave Axe, which you can get in this chapter with Halvin, I'll explain that a bit later. For right now, you know, we're gonna have Ocean go visit his house. Sorry, and Halvin will go this way. So next we have Jean. Now, Jean's equipment, you might be going, why does she have all these weapons? Well, the reason for this is because this is in part a tech demo of what the heck is going to be like, and there's no character like this in the first chapter. So something to note about Jean is that she has fire, wind, and thunder magic. Now, in this hack, you will have fire, wind, and thunder magic, and that's in addition to all the other ones. So this does have 2 whole new weapon types, which from a hacking perspective, you know, you don't really see too often. It can be kind of difficult to do because of RAM limitations. So one of the things that this support hack that I believe was made by Snake does is it freed up an extra space of RAM. So with some modifications, I was able to add in wind and thunder magic. So for the purposes of this demo, you know, Jean has wind and thunder magic. Normally, Jean's starting equipment is just a heal staff and a vulnerary. She doesn't have a weapon. You know, she's mostly just there to kind of like help support you and stuff like that. So for right now, we're just gonna kind of play it a bit on the slow side. Well, not on the slow side. I'm not gonna try and do like the LTC strat, 1, because I keep forgetting it, and 2, because, you know, we're here to show some stuff off. So here you can see Finn uses a different animation than the soldier animation, and he had a different map sprite, you know, because he's dismounted and stuff like that. And you can see the music is keeping in tune with Thracia's normal music. So heal music's the same and all that other kind of fun stuff. And Super Canto is back, so feel free to make as much use of that as you want. I put mounting further down towards the bottom because I figured, you know, that's just like easier. So now let's try capturing someone. So we're gonna capture this you know, soldier, because he's gonna be a bit easier to capture. So now this is another mechanic that I'm going to talk about for a bit, and that's the supply mechanic. So one of the problems with Sun God's Wrath and capturing in GBA games in general is that you only have 5 item slots. So to make up for that, I gave everyone the supply command, but there's a tiny twist to it. first, and the twist is that you can only give items on the map. You can't take items, it won't let you do that. Also, just in regards for thunder and wind magic, they get stored in the anima section, just with fire magic. Yeah, so when you're on the map, everyone has access to the supply, so you can give it so that you can make sure you're always able to capture, and it makes inventory management a bit easier. But you can only take from the supply in the prep screen, and when you're on a supply tile, from the supply building. The supply building hasn't been implemented yet, but when I get there, I'll see about making exceptions to it in the game logic to make sure that it works. So Avel, as you can see, got a movement star activation just then. She has 2 movement stars, so she's a 10% chance of it happening. I forgot actually to have her drop the soldier that she's equipped with that severely lowers her, stats. Just to show, Avel still has the same, kind of crummy growths, but that might change. Probably not, though. Another thing about Avel compared to the original game that isn't present here is, normally Avel has, the immortality flag, so she can't die until a certain point in the game. But in this hack, she can die, and if she dies, it's just a game over. So, that's that. So now for this next thing we're going to do is we're going to test out Leaf's combat art for Adept. We'll have him use the Iron Sword. I didn't expect him to crit and get that kill, but he did, so it's all good. And let's see. As far as Halvin goes, we'll move him up there to see if he activates Vantage, and then for Ocean, normally he wouldn't necessarily kill this guy. He has a 1% crit, but this time, because he has Wrath, he's just gonna wreck this guy. Yeah, so see, he just gets Vantage, and he takes a bit of damage, but he's doing pretty good. Okay, now you'll see Ocean get Wrath. So one of the other things that I did, because I find this mechanic to be a bit cheap in Thracia, as you can see here, Avel isn't getting any XP in combat, even when enemies are missing. So, this is, Dagdar and Tanya. I made both of these mugs. They probably both need some improvement, but, for right now, that's what we've got for them. This Marty mug is based off the original. I just spliced it up a bit so that it doesn't, so it looks a bit more like how he kind of looks. It still doesn't really look too much like him in my opinion, but there we go. So now we have these 3 new units. Dagdar has a Fire Sweep Axe. If you're familiar with heroes, you know that when you attack with this, your opponent can't counterattack, but the converse is that you can't counterattack either when you use it. Dagdar normally has the, I think it's the newer translation is the Assault skill. That skill I don't think is possible to implement in GBA. I tried to ask around in the hacking forums about it, and no one really seemed to think it was either doable or had an idea about that. And that has to do with like how round data works, like round being combat rounds. So to make up for that, he has the Savior skill. Something else about Dagdar and Tanya too is that they both have the Mercy skill. And the reason they both have the Mercy skill is because they can use bows. So in Sun God's Wrath, everyone had the Mercy skill, but this time around, to kind of make bow users a bit more valuable, only units in a class that can use bows have access to the Mercy skill. You know, maybe that'll be something that I change going forward and make it so that just bow users have a more powerful version of Mercy, because, you know, it's a combat art too, but we'll see. In regards to Tanya, normally as a bow fighter, she has 6 movement. I just gave her 7 movement. You know, you can see her stats are a bit better too compared to vanilla. Yeah, so that's kind of all I think I have to say about Dagdar and Tanya now that they're here. Marty, you know, is normally a huge meme. He has 0 skill and speed when he joins you. The reason why his skill and speed are boosted in this half is, one, you know, because enemy stats are boosted to make up for it. Like, I mean, they're all way down, but I don't think any of these soldiers normally are supposed to, like, have any attack speed or, like, have attack speed of, like, 1 in the vanilla version of this chapter. But, you know, that's just kind of how it is. You can see that, you know, Dagdar uses the, you know, Berserker map sprite and animation this time around, just like in vanilla. Yeah. So we're just gonna have Tanya kill this soldier because we can. Okay. I'm kind of worried because this is only like for temporary purposes, that it might freeze the game if I try and have Jean attack with a magic animation, and no one can counterattack her, so... Or, I mean, someone can counterattack her, because I don't think the Troubadour and staff animation normally supports that, so I'm just gonna have Jean kill the boss instead. Now, something else about Thracia is, you know, tiles have, like, tons of, you know, defense and effects and stuff like that. So this time around, I cut those stats in half, and the reason I did that is because the critical formula uses GBA, so, you know, you're not really, like, doing as much damage, you know, against enemies with high defense when you crit, unlike before. So Weissman, you know, he still has a ton of defense. It makes him really hard to capture if you want his longsword, which is a pretty decent weapon, but otherwise, like, you just gotta, you know, plow through him with magic. Okay, so now Ocean visits this village, and, you know, he gets the, you know, Vogue or Poogie or whatever you want to call it. Like I said, because I'm using official translations, you know, I went with Vogue or Vouge. I don't know how to pronounce, like, I don't know how to pronounce things, so that's that. So something I'm gonna show off just a bit here is just how the fire sweep axe works. So here we're gonna have Jean just use the Thunder Tome just to show that it does raise her Thunder magic weapon level. There's no critical animation for this you know, because it's just for demo purposes, so there was nothing to show off there. So you can see like her thunder magic rank grew. If I suspend and resume, it's still there. It'd be pretty bad if it wasn't still there after I've been recording for this long. But you know, we're coming to an end of this video shortly. Yeah, there's no reason for it to do that. So the next thing I'm going to talk about a bit here is with Halvin and the Brave Axe, which some people might not like a bit about this. So the Brave Axe is a B rank weapon, but Halvin can use it at D rank. So, you know, that doesn't mean much for like Dagdar because he has A rank axes, but for Marty, you know, normally he's able to wield the Brave Axe too because it's a D rank weapon. So, you know, some people might not like that, but, you know, to make up for it, you know, Marty's just a tiny bit stronger. He still has like terrible growths, which might change over time, like I've said. You know, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. Just show off this vendor, just has the vulnerary, start off with no money, like in vanilla Thracia. And just visiting some villages to show off some of the, you know, text, and you get items and all that kind of fun stuff. But otherwise, we're just gonna wrap up the chapter. Yeah, so Dagdar, you know, just doesn't counterattack and all that fun stuff. Because he had the fire sweep axe. And hopefully Marty can get a kill. I went with this animation for bandits because Marty, you know, he's clothed, and this is the one that I kind of thought best fit. I might change it to be more the one that matches with the map sprite. That one has like a bit of armor on it, but it's more like clothed like Marty is, and like how most of the bandits in this game normally are. So the victory music is something that I haven't fully implemented yet. Okay, like I said, I'm gonna try and just give Jean the boss kill. Did she double with that? No, how about that? Yeah. So one of the things that is implemented that I didn't do, and I probably should have done in retrospect, is that there are still release quotes for bosses. So if you did capture Weissman, steal a sword, and decide to release him, you'd get something. There's also in this chapter a different conversation. If you capture Weissman and don't release him, I might do things like that more often as you know, the hack progresses. But otherwise, that kind of wraps things up for this, you know, demonstration of like what the remake is going to be like, and you know, some of the game mechanics. Not all the game mechanics like are fully implemented just yet, and as far as the progress for the gameplay goes, like it's just the first chapter. One gameplay mechanic, or two gameplay mechanics I know I'm gonna have to work on are obviously dismounting is a feature. So, you know, if you're going indoors, like you're not gonna be able to stand on like certain indoor tiles. So I'm gonna need to make some hacks to make it so like if you go to a chapter that's all indoors, everyone starts off, you know, on that. And the other thing I need to make is so that if you put, you know, an enemy to sleep, you can capture them. Like right now, mounted units, like they have so much aid because they can capture anything, but you can't. I'm gonna make it like in Sungra's Wrath, where if like a unit is mounted, like they just have the Kanto skill, like you just can't capture them. So I believe that about wraps it up for this video in regards to like the mechanics. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for your time. If you have any questions, after this video goes live for FEE3, I plan on making a thread in FAU and Serene's Forest to, answer them. If you want to ask me any questions on YouTube, feel free to. Um, and if you want to help out with the project, like I'm always happy to have people, join. Like I could use some people to make the mugs and events. Like I said, this is going to be a pretty straightforward remake. So thank you for your time. Hope you have a great day.